Can you hear me now? Hey, so you can hear me now? I can't hear you guys though. Let me see. Can you hear me now? Okay, 1 second, fellas. All right, folks, I'm back. Sorry about that. I had some technical difficulties, had to figure some things out. But back to what I was saying, tonight, conversation is to bring more awareness and attention to mental health and mental illness, specifically, sorry, out of breath. Had to make that quick. Specifically, depression and suicide in men. Originally, I planned to do this podcast alone tonight, but I know a couple of my co-hosts, they wanted to hop on, man. So I'm grateful for that, to kind of add some perspective on, their personal dealings with mental health, mental illness, and suicide, from their personal experiences. I'm excited to bring them on. I'm about to bring it on. First up is my man, Chris P. Pastor Chris P, to be exact.
How's it going, guys?
Hey, bro. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling good, man. Glad to be on the podcast tonight and glad to finally get what's been talked about, prayed about, strategized about out in the open, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm excited, man. For all you guys that don't know, Chris P. How you say last name P for me? I don't want to mess it up.
Patrat.
Chris Patrat. He's the pastor at the Generation Center out in Only, Maryland. Look him up. Come visit the service. Next up, we have my buddy Chris Will. We go back since high school. He also wants to talk about, give some insight on dealing with depression and suicide as well. What's up, Chris?
What's up, man?
How you feeling, bro?
Good, man. What's up, everybody?
Man, hey, bro, I'm excited about this, man. It's been a long time coming, bro. But
yeah, definitely.
It's a heavy subject. Pedro will be on later on if he can. He's out with his sons, working them out for basketball. But yeah, man, let's hop right into it. We're all a part of a show called The Loquacious Thinkers, the podcast show that'll be coming your way on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook in late January. It's a unique way of discussing mental health. And hey, Beauty, yes, I can see it. It's a unique way of bringing attention to mental health and mental illness, especially amongst the hip hop generation and to the youth. It's something that we need to talk about. It's something that needs to be delivered in a different way. So a lot of the things that we're going to talk about are coming from personal experiences with me dealing with bipolar 2, having severe anxiety disorder, and a few other things that I deal with that nobody really knew I've dealt with. Chris, Chris P and Chris W can tell you in a second, you know, where they're coming from, but I'm coming from a place where I've dealt with depression all my life. A few years before I hit my mental break, I made I was in the process of making a suicide attempt when it was interrupted randomly. You know, the way that was interrupted, I know that was nobody but God. And I'm thankful to be here today. And although it's been hard for me to get to this place to talk about the things that I've dealt with, for whatever reason, the guilt, the shame, the embarrassment of what I was dealing with, you know, man, it's at a space now where I'm ready to talk about it. And I used to ask God questions like, what was the point of all of this? Why would you put somebody through all this? What's the point of this type of pain? What's the point of knowing this type of darkness exists? You know, all the questions that I've had in my past, you know, a buddy of mine, a really good friend, brought to my attention last December. And I asked him the question, you know, I was asking God, and he was like, bro, you always talking about this, man. And you're always asking God this question, but have you ever stopped and looked for an answer? And, you know, I'm thankful for that conversation, man, because it really allowed me to put some things in perspective as far as connecting the dots from my previous careers that I was struggling with not having anymore to what I'm currently doing now, what I currently love to do as far as youth development and mentoring. It's been a long road, man. It's been a hard road. And I thank God that I look nothing like what I've been through. I tell God all the time that I'm thankful for just having my mind back, man, because that's a dark place, man. Like, and unfortunately, I know what it's like to lose your mind. And I didn't think I would ever get any of where I'm at back. And I just thank God for, you know, for bringing me back into a space where I'm able to function again the way I can process it. That I'm used to processing. I've been able to cope. The resources that He put in my life, you know, to help me be able to cope. When I was diagnosed with bipolar, it was like being diagnosed with cancer because of the stigma around mental health and mental illnesses. I thought it was nothing that I could bounce back from. I was on medication for years, 6 different medications to kind of help balance out, you know, the things that I was dealing with. That came with the anxiety, and that came with the manic depression and the mania that was frequent in that time period. And it's funny because that stuff didn't hit until after I considered suicide. And my first break came at a child support hearing. And I was ordered to pay an obnoxious amount that I really couldn't afford to pay at the time. And I was already struggling trying to, you know, handle child support obligation previously, and outside of that, some life things that we deal with as far as trying to manage getting evicted and keeping the bills paid and keeping the car to get back and forth to work to kind of do the things that I was doing. During that time frame, I was working. I've always had 2 jobs. I either had a full-time job and a part-time job, or I've had 2 full-time jobs, or I went to a space where I went to school. I worked full-time and went to school either full-time or part-time. And what I found out was that some things are humanely impossible. And although we like to get things done in that way, you know, we can't do everything. And sometimes we got to sit back and acknowledge these situations and the feelings that we have going through some of these situations. You know, I think that at that time period, I was exhausted. And you know, I was doing my best, but I understood what it looked like to my kids' mom. As far as number one, I worked so much to try to get a future for my kids that it looked like that I wasn't as available, you know, to my kids. But you know, during that time, I was getting the pressure for money. And you know, once things switched over to where I wasn't working a lot, you know, when they were asking for money, I couldn't give time. And then when the time was available, I couldn't give the money that was expected. So that processing all of that, man, and having somebody tell me that I could afford it, that didn't look like me, that didn't know my situation, you know, behind the desk telling me that it's my obligation. I have to figure out how to pay it. And I was already working 2 jobs. It was no way for me to kind of make this. You know, thank God, my daughter mom, you know, she, the original balance that was quoted, she took it down, but then it was still hard for me to pay, to kind of manage everything. You know, with me juggling all of my responsibilities as a dad, with me, you know, handling the emotions that I had, with the type of dad that I wanted to be, I learned that, you know, certain things come with being a young dad that I didn't expect. And throughout that time frame, when you have multiple kids, a lot of guys my age don't realize that, I was in my 20s, probably at 19 when I had my first daughter, and 21, 22 when I had my second. And of course, you don't have a career at that point, But my goal to be a dad and to be a family kind of drove all that because I was going to figure it out. No matter what it took, I was going to get it done. But man, I overreached myself and I reached a level of exhaustion that I didn't know existed. And before that, my perception of suicide was like everyone else's. Like it was selfish. I would never do it. I would never get to a space where I would be that weak. And it just, when things got really tough, I tapped out unconsciously. And my family's seen a different version of myself, and of course, with the change, becomes the questions that naturally develop amongst family and things like that. You don't look like yourself. You don't act like yourself. So dealing with that and trying to figure out what I was going through, I ended up fast forward a couple of years, I ended up having a mental break after a really tough week while staying with my aunts. My aunt and I got into an argument, and I would never talk to my aunt the way that her and I were talking to each other that day. And the aunt that I was arguing with is the one that made me promise that I would, at the time that I wouldn't go through with suicide because she had just recently experienced a loss of suicide. But my brain was telling me otherwise, man. With my child support obligations and not being able to keep up with the rent and not wanting to move in to burden anybody else, in my family, it put me in a space, man, where I just couldn't figure it out. And then one thing just kept coming after another, major losses after loss after loss after loss. And, people are voicing, their opinion of you, and it's pretty much echoing of what you feel of yourself. And you get into a space, man, where you just don't recognize yourself anymore, man. And that's even today, this day is hard for me to talk about, bro, because, and I'm just giving you guys insight on how depression works, right? Because again, nobody knows this by looking at me. Nobody knows how I interact, but a lot of the things I've been depressed about are legit things that people kill themselves over initially. You know what I'm saying? Like early on, I witnessed I wouldn't say domestic violence, but domestic altercations. And I was too young to process what I was seeing. And then as I get older, I get molested by a neighbor, and I go on from there. And then the questions as I get older is, wondering why my dad isn't around, why he doesn't call me, why the relationship isn't, what it should be. And, those things kind of play with me throughout life too, where I created my kids, or, my kids were made in a space where I wanted to be a dad. And you got to understand, like, since I was younger, man, I feel like I've been cursed. I feel like, everything that I wanted has been used against me. And everything that I genuinely, gave effort into and tried to make work, I've seen that somehow that you could put full effort into it, doesn't always turn out your way, right? So what I mean by that is, my perception of being a dad was always something grandiose in my mind. And it got to a point, man, where, not to make excuses, but I couldn't please everybody. I couldn't create a future, and I couldn't, provide time, and I couldn't provide money without not providing, I couldn't provide the money aspect while providing time. And it put me in a complicated space as a young man where I didn't know how to process it. And I didn't have any male around me to kind of help me out with this stuff, man. So, you know what I mean? So it was at a point where it was, my first child was made out of love. And, things didn't go well, like a lot of young relationships, but, I was kind of hurt by it because some of the things that were echoed throughout that time period was I was just like my dad. And I was confused because it hurt me because I was always trying to do more. I was always doing what I thought that I wanted a dad to do, but it wasn't always looked at in that way, from the other side, which I understand. So, but you get to a space where as I got older and I had more kids, that dream never faded. But naturally, the part that I consider was relationships and how they actually work, and how sometimes people grow apart. So those things really damaged me because I was in a space where I wanted a family. I was dying to have a family since a young age. So when it didn't work out that way, I've always felt like a failure, right? So then you throw child support on it. And then child support has me paying that amount, although it doesn't seem like a lot to a lot of people. It was a lot to me because I was handling and being behind on my rent and, doing things like that and trying to maintain, the things for myself and my kid. So it got overwhelming, man. And it got to a point where, I started to feel like I said I was being tortured, and before I knew it, I just gave up. And it wasn't like I logically gave up. It was just a point where I ended up calling out for work, not being dependable and reliable. And it wasn't the way I didn't want to be there, man. I just couldn't get out of the bed, and I didn't understand why. I couldn't brush my teeth. I didn't want to be around people. I'm a loving person. I love being around family and very social. So I didn't want anybody to see me. I started to isolate myself. And that wasn't good. And I didn't realize that was another step in depression where, the things that I was battling mentally were wearing me down and physically. I started to experience like severe medical issues. My asthma started going crazy. Other weird heart issues that I've never had before. I didn't understand where this stuff was coming from, man. And so it just put me in a space where ultimately I felt like my life was teasing me. It was always like, yeah, you can get this, but nope, not right now. And it got to a space, man, where, I think my relationship ended with my second daughter mother, and I had to move back in with my mom. And that's when I really started to experience the depression side of it. I remember being depressed because my kids didn't have anywhere to lay at when they came other than the air mattress in the living room. I remember being depressed that I felt like a failure because I couldn't manage the responsibility of being a young dad and keeping a roof over their head. I was in a space where, the people that you loved and genuinely cared about, you started to see like some things influence their feelings that they don't always give you that warm hug or warm thought sometimes, or consideration sometimes. And they shut you out. And they make you feel what they feel are your mistakes. They punish you. So, it got to the point where within that space, I didn't want to, one of my promises to myself, no matter what, was I wouldn't miss any of my kids' birthdays. And that's the thing that I struggle with the most because like I was having a hard time, man. And like every birthday, it was a reminder that I was having and what I wasn't doing, right? So you would hear the loud private conversations I was supposed to be whispering. You would hear the intentional, sayings of you're not doing enough, whether you just put a couple dollars in the card versus what somebody else grabbed. And you want to think that you're imagining things or you're being overly sensitive to it, but it was more like it just came out on every direction where how people felt about me. And it echoed how I felt about myself, right? You can consider a lot of things that kind of play the influence that go back to the molestation, not having my dad, not really knowing who I am, not really fitting in around the people that I like to be around, and or people I want to be, just not fitting in at all. You know what I'm saying? So in my mind. So, I got to a space where it got heavy, and a lot of things that I was dealing with dealt with the molestation, it dealt with my dad, it dealt with the relationship that I had with my kid's mom. And the crazy thing about that is people probably perceived that I didn't care, but that was my front. I couldn't show you that she was getting to me when I was around, and the thing that would have had me go down was, all of that. And it got to a space, man, where I felt like my kids would be better off, without me. I felt like, I can't do the time. I can't give time anyway because I'm too busy having to work to pay off debt and bills and try to make my child support obligations. I keep hearing the thing about money, so that must be the thing that's needed. So, of course, we all know with life insurance that, in most cases that they don't pay out for suicide, right? But myself, like so many other people, know how to manipulate that type of stuff, man, and make it real and make sure that what comes to the family, comes to the family. So what I'm trying to say is that during that time frame, man, that the thought of suicide ended up growing from what most think about it as being selfish and soft and, not man enough or like I said, selfish, but it wasn't. It was in a way where I felt like I was taking the burden off of people because they wasn't telling me because they love me. that part was the hardest part of my life, man, because like I said, when I made the decision to do it, I literally had the gun in my lap, and I got a phone call without expecting it, and they didn't know anything was wrong until they heard my voice. They didn't know what was going on. It was a random phone call, and they were just like, my aunt made me promise, just like not to do it. So although I felt like I was being a burden, no matter how much of a burden, like my family would be crushed if I wasn't around. And that's not just my family. That's my entire family, my entire circle, my network. For whatever reason, man, people love me and they want to support me. But it's hard for me after going through all that, man, and dealing with things myself for the amount of years that I did. I didn't want to fight anymore, man. And when I made that promise, I didn't hang up the phone like, oh, thank God for sending that message. I was pissed off, man. I was mad. I was angry with God. It was in a space where I cursed him out. I was banging on the dashboard. I was I was punching things, man. I was crying hard for a couple of days after that, and for months, I know my wife thought I was crazy, man, because we would be on my way to work, and I just would cry the entire time. My hood over my head, I would just be bawling. I couldn't talk. I couldn't really get anything out. I just didn't want to be here anymore, man. You believe you trick yourself into believing, like, man, if God was real, he wouldn't make anybody go through this. He wouldn't make anybody feel like this. But that's the part where I say the brain is a powerful organ, man, and the trick into believing things that aren't real. And within that space, I just started looking for things that was looking for me. My intake on weed had increased. I went from weed to try, I couldn't really get what I was getting from out of that. So I ended up like trying some Molly and ecstasy, man, because, it was frequent, but it wasn't addictive. It wasn't an addiction. It was more in a way where I just wanted to feel good, man. And if anything you know about, that type of drug, it just makes you feel euphoric. And I remember when one day I was rolling and I was like, man, like, is this how people feel? Like, I don't feel any of this. Like, I don't feel a tenth of this, And I used to walk around thinking, like, how does everybody like just be so happy and laugh and joke and not pay attention to the things that are going on in life? I get a lot deeper into some of the things that I've dealt with along the way, on the podcast and in the book that I'm working on. But just to give a little bit of idea, man, like the people that are the brightest in the room and are the silliest and are the goofiest and so they have no worries, they're usually the ones struggling the most. And I want to bring attention to the fact that this is a holiday time. And, although it's a joyous occasion, there are so many people, man, hurting right now. A lot of people are suffering from loss. And a lot of people can't do what they want to be financially for themselves or their family. So, keep in mind and reach out to somebody, just to check on them, man. And they don't have to be going through a mental health crisis for you to check on them. Just reach out and talk to them and see what's going on, my kids, they lost a very important person to them, right before Thanksgiving. And that alone crushed me, because loss was also one of the factors that played a role in my depression. And I appreciate that, Beauty. So, no, man, like it's in a space where, I wanted to use this platform and I started rambling a little bit. But, I'm going to give my co-host a chance to come on and tell that side of things. But I wanted to bring attention to something, man, because 3 days before Twitch committed suicide, he made a video of himself dancing with his wife, and they were having a really good time, what seemed to be a really good time. But, along that way, and seeing that video, I realized I seen myself, because you take yourself out of a space of you having a good time. You are in a space of enjoying being in the space of having somebody else have a good time. So with someone like his wife, I can see him kind of wanting to do that for her and be in a good space. But when she goes to bed, who knows what he was dealing with? And, I've dealt with that for years in my marriage where, I try my best to play it tight. But then once the family go down, man, I'm like bawling, bro. And it's no explanation. You hear people say that you're selfish when you commit suicide. You hear people say that you're weak, but nobody knows the strength that it takes to get to that point of suicide. It's not just a decision you make going through one hard time. That's like a lifetime of disappointment. It's a lifetime of pain. It's a lifetime of mental torture, right? So it's kind of like in a space where would you say it was selfish if a man was standing in the middle of the field and he was on fire and he had a gun in his hand? Would you say he was selfish for taking himself out of that pain? You wouldn't. And dealing with anxiety and depression, sometimes it feels like you're on fire. You can't get an escape from your nightmares. You go to bed, to kind of get rest, and you have some nightmares. You wake up in the morning and you're going living in a nightmare. So, sometimes people don't know how to cope with what they're dealing with because they haven't even processed that there's something wrong. And I didn't realize that until I started talking to other brothers around me. I didn't realize until I started talking to my therapist. I didn't realize until I went through the process of rehabilitation. After leaving the hospital, I did rehabilitation for 30 days. And it was mental rehabilitation. It wasn't substance rehabilitation. Substance abuse rehabilitation. It was for mental illness recovery. And, I bought into it. And thank God I am where I am today. So I'm going to stop rambling. I'm going to give my co-host a chance to hop on. Look like they went out for a second, so maybe I have to keep rambling for a second. Chris, you there?
Which one?
Either one of you guys, man.
Yeah,
I'll go ahead and take over.
here.
I talked too much already. Hey, Chris, man. Hey, Chris P. I think it's dope to have you on here, man, because it touches on something that you hear so often as isn't God enough when you go through something like what I went through and what others are struggling, what other men and a lot of women are struggling with too. Is God enough? Is your faith enough in that process?
Man, I would say, yes, God is enough. I would definitely, I've been in ministry close to 29 years. Basically 27 of those years was in youth ministry as a youth pastor, youth leader. Is God enough? I've seen God do some amazing miracles in people's lives, man. Mm-hmm. I've seen him heal some major traumas, Yeah. And there's always some sort of fight, you always ask yourself, well, Lord, why am I going through this? I didn't pick my parents, and my parents molested me or whatever. I think what we have to understand something is that we're in a fallen world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And just like there's God, there's an enemy, and just like God has plans for you, the enemy does too. I mean, his job description is very easy: steal, kill, and destroy. Right?
Yeah.
He wants to steal your identity. He wants to kill your very life, man, your bloodline, and he wants to destroy you. He wants to destroy your reputation. So a lot of this is, doing this thing called life was never just supposed to be just you and God. It was supposed to be done in family. I think the most powerful thing we have is family. But if a lot of pain comes from your family, I think the church hasn't done really a good job of providing a family atmosphere. And I'm not one that wants to beat up the Church of God, but we in the Western church, man, we do church differently than any other nation. It's almost like the poorer nations have a better revelation of what family is and how to support each other. So, to me, it's not fair for you to say, well, you're being selfish. I don't think that crosses anyone's mind that commits suicide.
Yeah.
I think they're so paralyzed and gripped and depressed and not thinking correctly that they're just kind of more thinking like maybe life would be better without them. Yeah. And that's a lie. I don't think you can judge anyone's life unless you're willing to go through the same things they have gone through. I think it's very insensitive, to be honest. And again, we always want to, for some reason, being bold with those types of statements has made people look powerful, but it doesn't. It makes you look insensitive. And and quite honestly, you're not advertising a Jesus that was compassionate, a Jesus that heard your story, a Jesus that said, hey, you know what? I feel your pain. And that's the thing, So when we throw that's a real strong judgment. You're being selfish, but you don't know what that is. I'll be honest. I had a mental breakdown in ministry. I was telling you, Devin, about 5-6 years ago. And for the first time in my life, I realized that my body said enough. It said enough. I don't want you to experience another joy, another milestone,
Yeah.
another, another happiness until you deal with the pain that you've been living with and you've been surviving with. And I think that's the thing is we live in survival mode, especially Latinos and Black males, where there's this, this persona, the stigma of us, having to be strong and having to go together. And we're going against society and we're going against this. And there's so much, situations that are, that we're under attacking. And then the reality is this, man, it's we have to learn how to, one, communicate and learn to be vulnerable, but also, Devin, and something you've kind of confessed is learn how to be loved on.
Yeah, that's facts, bro.
Like, I mean, learn encouragement, and I went through it. The only reason why I can do it a little bit better, brother, is because I'm a little older and I've gone through it a little longer, where I've had to confront this thing of like I call it like an orphan spirit. It's like, it's like I'm carrying this like this belief that I deserve the less than, I deserve the tail, I'm not the head. And so a lot of those things, man, especially, coming into what we're going to be doing in January, which I'm excited. First, let me just give you your roses. I'm proud of you, man. It's happened. Everything has tried to come against it. And it's probably why we're probably having some of the toughest 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Very tough for me as well. But
yeah.
I think we're embarking on something because we're changing the game and saying, listen, as a pastor, as a Latino, as a man, we need to kind of switch things up. Too many of us are dying, and we're dying alone. And just for me, it's a matter of I'll say this about the whole, because people mean well on social media, but we we got to get out of the social media bubble and learn how to live with people. you
Yeah.
know and Twitch passes away, and my heart is it is. I mean, I don't even know the guy, but my daughter loved watching him and his wife's TikToks, and they seem like they have the happy kind of a deal, and then everyone's like, hey man, on their Facebook, hey man, reach out if you're going through something, and I'm sitting there thinking, nah, brother, you will know if we're going through something. You got to come and check in. Because we might not know how to communicate our pain. We might be in a dark place where we are most likely are enjoying the isolation. And the problem with isolation is it breeds deception. You know what I'm saying? Adam wasn't paying attention to Eve when she was isolated with the snake.
That's
You know
fact.
what I'm saying?
That's fact, bro.
It breeds deception, man. And so when I had my mental breakdown, I'll just end it with this. For the first time in my life, I wasn't suicidal, but I thought about, I could see why people can go ahead and just go through it all the way.
Mm-hmm.
And that understanding scared me to death. And I went and I did everything, because I knew if I sat in that understanding, it would open doors to thoughts.
I got you.
Yeah. And me, man, like I said, what's happening here is we are being examples of how minorities, men should communicate these things without the stigma of you're weak, whatever, Part of my testimony is, guys, for the last 3 years, I know Jesus heals, and I believe Jesus can heal my depression and my anxiety. I believe it. I believe it for you. I believe it for everyone. I've seen him do it. But until then, I'm taking an antidepressant. And that's a lot that rubs some of my friends in ministry the wrong way, because they that communicates to them that I'm trusting medicine more than I'm trusting God. Here's the thing, man. We are all accountable to the Lord, and whatever works, do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that, when it comes to medicine, like if you got to do that, if you got to do therapy, come on, man, let's get in there and let's talk about some feelings. If you have to cry, like your vulnerability is a weapon. Because that's not what we were taught, man. We were taught men don't cry. we were taught how to, I remember getting in a fight, getting punched in my face, and having to suck those emotions in because my dad didn't want to see them because he said that was a sign of weakness.
Yeah,
so,
facts.
So for 10 years, I've learned when it came to pain, I wasn't allowed to have any. So I had to fake it. And here it is. All that's coming out now,
Yeah.
So that's what I'll say, man. So that you just leave it with that. I'm super excited, and I can't wait to hear Chris W. and Pedro. I think we got some amazing men with amazing stories.
Yeah, definitely, man. Hey, and hey, 1 second, man. I just want to shout out to everybody commenting in the comment section. I see you. Thanks for the love. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for being patient as we work through the some of the bugs and the wrinkles of the very first episode. But I promise it's going to get better. So, Chris, being a pastor, man, Chris W. I'm gonna give it to you in 1 second, bro. All right. Hey, Chris, like, what is some of the, as a pastor, man, especially dealing with the youth? Not going into too much detail, but what is number one, the amount of people that are dealing with depression is alarming to you, and number two, what are some of the most common issues that you notice some men deal with, with depression?
So here's the thing. The thing that's alarmed me about the youth in the last 15 to 20 years, I would honestly say, is the amount of young people that are raised by a single family, especially Black and Latinos.
Yeah.
The sound family is something that's under attack. Fathers are under attack in the inner city.
And the suburbs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying though is the majority of these crises that you start to see is happening. I mean, divorce is just as much as in the world, it's in the church. I think it's like 50%. And so we're not doing any better in marriage just because we got God.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for me, I think the alarming thing is the amount of father wounds that I have seen in this generation has baffled me.
I agree with you, bro. I've said the same thing to my wife as a mentor, bro. Like, some of my kids that are suffering the most, man, are raised by single moms, and either their dad is in prison or in the grave or not around, and these kids are impacted profoundly, bro. It's scary.
Yeah. No, and then so I would say that's kind of a thing. It's interesting, man, because I think one of the issues that I see is also kids are living on their phones.
Yeah.
They're creating an alternate reality. You know what I'm saying? And I've seen kids, average kids. It used to be like there'd be a stereotype with some kids that didn't know how to read people. Maybe they were homeschooled or whatever. But I'm seeing more and more kids missing cues because they've created a reality, and I wonder what's that going to look like in the next 10 years.
Oh, it's scary, bro. It's scary, bro. Like, my biggest thing, I recognize some things we can't change, but working in the school system, bro. I'm working middle school. Just seeing how some of these kids react. It's not that they don't want structure. They want it from people they trust, but they yearn it from a particular space that they're not getting it. It's usually coming from the tree that falls from their father. They seem to have a love for their mom, an overbearing love for their mom, or either an anger, but they have an extreme anger or sadness when it comes to that dad, whether in whatever way that he's missing. That's the part that plays on my heartstrings daily.
Yeah, absolutely. And the second question, remind me again.
The second question was, man, like, what are you seeing as a pastor as some of the most common situations that have men in the space of depression where they get into the place of contemplating suicide? Is it a lack of family? Is it financial issues? Is it what most consider demons that they've been battling their whole life, whether that's addiction, whether that is mental illness, whether that's, if they're having a battle with, LGBTQ communities, things like that, you know what I'm saying? So, like, what do you see as a pastor, especially a youth pastor? You can speak on both, though.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you. What I see with what men are going through right now is honestly the shame of maybe not fulfilling their expectation of what a man is, a husband is, a father is. I see shame really being something that really, for instance, if you're going through financial situations and you can't provide, there's a shame about that. That's why guys really are maybe a little too prideful not to talk about it. If they're dealing with like say a hidden sin, a sexual sin, there's this shame in them. That's what I've usually seen that in young people. I honestly think it's not being in a home that knows how to create a safe place for young people to navigate just teenage life, the
Yeah.
bumps on the road. I mean, there's a lot of teenagers that learn how to be quiet because they don't feel safe with mom and dad or mom or whatever knowing what they know. And so I think there's a lot of different things now that we are going to have to kind of teach the church in particular, like, how to teach creating a safe place, how to have conversations. I mean, a lot of this stuff is can your young person trust you to talk about their mishaps or their successes? I think we only enjoy when they come with the successes, but the truth of the matter is relationship grows when they're able to talk to you about their weaknesses and how they're feeling about certain things, and they're learning how to articulate it. That's the best thing we can do right now, because here's the thing. How long did it take you, Devin, or myself, or even Chris W., to really give language to what we were feeling?
Yeah. But you know what, man? That's facts, bro. I didn't get that until probably like 35, bro. You know what I'm saying? So I agree with you. And I was going to ask you too, like, as far as men, but listening to you, you would probably, I think, in order for it to work, man, you have to use the same concept when it comes to adult males, whether that's your wife, whether that's your significant other, your grandmother, your mother, your aunt. And I think the scariest thing, man, when men start to show weakness, that their family tend to back up from them. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially when they're dealing with something like bipolar. I was blessed to have a family that, they hit a hit on along with me. And they kind of got to the bottom of it, what they had to do. But there are a lot of people, a lot of friends that I know, man, they are going through, they go through it in a space where their family push them away. You know what I'm saying? And not to a point where they would realize what's happening, where they think the family wouldn't, but we feel everything in that space, right? And like that goes back to something that you said, that family isn't just good for kids. That family is good for men, is good for women. That it gives a different type of support, a different type of structure to you as a human being.
Yeah.
It gives a different type of confirmation. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's funny that you say that, man, because a lot of my friends, the guys that I was close to, man, like I know quite a few guys that committed suicide. That's why I'm so passionate about what I'm talking about, what we're talking about today. And a lot of the things they committed suicide about were finances and the perception of what they were going through with their wife or with their kid's mom. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I asked you, like, bro, like, what was the thing? And I'm saying that to kind of lead way into Chris W, man, because Chris W, my man, like, we went to high school together, and we really did, like, we crossed paths and we were cool with each other, man. We kind of ran within the same circles, but we said a couple months ago, like, bro, we didn't realize that we were both dealing with the same things. And Chris has a story, man. Like I think his dad passed away from suicide. He deals with a few things as far as bipolar 2 as well as me. At the same level, and I think it's dope that he's willing, to come back around and talk about some things on the platform like this. Hey, Chris, man, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, man. So just like he said, my name's Chris Williams. A lot of people from our school probably know me, recognize me. I wasn't the most social person back in those days, but I do want to come on here and go over some things that I went through and touch on the whole suicide conversation, because a lot of people don't understand that when a person is in that state, they're doing it from a selfless place, because they're feeling like people would be better off without them. So in their mind, they feel like they're doing their loved ones a favor, by committing suicide. So and if you haven't went through that yourself, you wouldn't get it. You wouldn't understand. And a lot of people need to understand also that depression is very common, and society has always made it, like, especially for men, as like, if you going through that, you soft, or you weak. You know what I mean? When really the strongest thing ever is to come out and speak on that and let people know about it. You know what I mean? Instead of holding on to it, because all you're doing is creating chaos in your mind and for everybody around you. So I'm glad we got this platform so we can speak on it and be open about it. And I feel like a lot more people should, come out and speak on it as well. So,
Yeah.
that's just my piece on it.
Yeah, hey Chris, man, like so, I think back in high school, a lot of people did know, a few people that your dad had passed away, man. Um, you you okay with talking about a little bit of that? Like what do you think? Do you know where it came from? You know what he probably was dealing with? How did that impact you? Growing up.
Um, I mean, I know a little bit about it. I feel like, he was, he had a few kids by different moms, and at the time, I think it was just weighing on him. He was in a place where he didn't feel like he was in a position to take care of him or pay that child support or I think it bombarded him at the time, and it was just overwhelming. And at that time, I guess he felt like, rather than to see everybody struggle or put everybody in a bad space, he would just, commit suicide. And really, I feel like it changed a lot for me because, you know, I had to go through life not knowing who he was, not knowing anything about him. When he committed suicide, I was only a few months old, so I don't know anything about myself as far as in relation to him, like why I think the way I think, or why I do certain things, or why I'm interested in certain things. That's all questions that I will leave this world not knowing, not ever knowing, you
Yeah.
know. So and then the family, they had to come together to try to, raise me. And I just missed out on that bond, that father son bond, so um that's why it's very important for me to try to have a relationship with my children, because now, I don't do everything that I would like to do, or I'm not as present as I would like to be, but I'm trying, I'm just doing the best I can.
Hey, bro,
So
ain't that crazy though, bro? Because at the service, man, if you talk to a lot of people on the other side, and I'm not saying anything personal. I'm just saying that sometimes it's a way of miscommunication and misunderstanding. Like I think people think we don't feel that. You know what I'm saying? I
yeah,
think that I think people feel like a lot of dads out here, man, especially dads, the single dads that aren't with the other person anymore. I think women think that every man comes from a place of intentionally doing the wrong, right? But then a lot of different things plays a factor in what you're able to do, during that time period. I think situations, a lot of situations, man, they warrant, the actions taken to get a third party involved, or the lashing of the tongue, or things like that when it comes to a relationship with kids, man. But I think what I'm seeing, man, is a lot of dudes, man, we struggle with that, man, and that's one of the biggest things that mess with us. And I'm gonna say that from my personal experience,
yeah,
because outside of being molested, bro, and outside of like my biggest issues, man, bigger than that molestation, bro, was not having my dad around and not being a dad that I wanted to be, or not having the dad that I want to be tangible. You know what I'm saying? Getting to a space
yeah,
where it invests itself and not without effort. You know what I'm saying? Like more in a space like, bro, you can't do everything. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
so, and sometimes, man, it's not the bad, it's scary, like Chris said, like Chris P said, when it comes to family, bro, like what's scary to me is that the lack of looking at what's being talked about on podcasts and for social medias and things like that. Society's not embracing the family concept anymore. Women are finding every reason not to be with a man. Men are finding every reason not to settle down with a particular woman. And it's nothing but shots being thrown back and forth, and nobody realizes that, bro, we are crumbling at the foundation.
yeah,
You have nothing without a family. So
yeah,
in a space where, if we can at least, I've been through this process by learning and growing, but man, outside of anything, just being able to co-parent does a lot for a kid and a lot for men and women. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
so you can't be the traditional family, like still being in a place where you can co-parent effectively, right? And what I mean by that is supporting as far as talking to your kids, as far as like, hey, not really talking down to your kids about the other person, but talking up to them and support as far as like, hey, I know your dad, I know your mom. If he's in this place, there's something must be going on. Why don't you talk to him? Better yet, I'll talk to him and see what what we can meet at. But now you hear so many things on, who's bringing what to the table and who provides what in a society where it's family is being looked at as less important and material things are being idolized, right? And something as simple as money, I hate it. You know what I'm saying? People think I'm lying when I really don't like money for the things that I've seen, personally transpire from money within itself, from any direction. And it's scary, man, because a lot of us do get beat up by the thoughts of every day where you're a husband, whether you're a dad, what you're not doing and when you're not doing enough, right? So when you hear that echoed and you see, that other people are feeling how you feel and you can't do anything to get any momentum going, bro, it does something different to you, man. It puts you in a space where that alone puts you in a dark space. And you throw stuff like death and you throw losses on the other side of it, bro, that puts you to a space, man, where people don't even realize that it's like a psychosis. It's not the average type of depression. It's not your average type of sadness or unwilling to go, man. That is a space where you really like, man, that's a dark and cold space, bro. And the best way I can relate that is, you feel like as a man, bro, in my 30s, I felt like a 4-year-old child in the middle of an abandoned school, in the middle of an abandoned neighborhood by myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that type of space, man, you realize you starting to see, man, like it can't be selfish if kids are taking their own life. What's selfish about a kid taking their own life? What is that child dealing with, man, to kind of have him in a space where, he didn't even start life, but he knows he don't have a chance or she don't have a chance.
Well, that's the reason why I always say that you can't neglect the mind. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people, like we talk about it all the time where we have conversations with people and they say, I ain't going to no therapist. What they going to tell me about me? They don't know what I'm going through. This, that, and the third. And my thing is that, like, if you'll go see a dentist for your teeth, or like I tell you all the time, if you go see a dentist for your teeth, you go to a chiropractor for your back, and any other part of your body, what would make anybody think that you don't need to go and get a checkup on your brain, your mind?
You got you.
You know what I'm saying? That's a part of your body too. You know what I mean? And really, if we speaking on selfish, that to me, that's selfish for the people around you. You know what I mean? For you to not go and get a checkup and see if everything is going on up here. You know what I'm saying? Like,
what's crazy about that, bro? I didn't know nothing was going on. Like, I used to talk to God, bro, and be like, "Hey, God, something is off. Like, if you lead me to where it is, I promise I'll do what I gotta do to fix it." But, bro, like,
but that's what I'm saying. I mean, you, it's not like, you don't really have to know if something is going on. You go to your doctor for a general checkup. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. Just in general, just to make sure everything is good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
because
you're right.
People around you, you know what I mean? People, you might be causing trauma to people around you and yourself and not even know it, because you're not going, to get checked up on. You know what I'm saying? Like, and like I said, people will say, "Oh, I'm not going to a therapist because they can't tell me about myself." You'll trust a dentist. You'll trust, your regular doctor if you're sick. So it's the same thing. You know what I mean? Like,
hey, what's up? Hey, my bad, Chris. What's up, Justin? How you doing, fam? Go ahead, Chris. My bad.
These people are not going to college and spending all this money to get degrees for nothing. You know what I mean? So, that's my thing, is that, you want to just make sure you're good. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah. My bad, man. I got kicked off for a second.
yeah.
Yeah, man. Like, nah, bro. I agree with you, man. I think, what I wanted to do was kind of give insight on what men feel with depression, right? So I can give him an example of a friend of mine that passed away. And one of the things, he was dealing with bipolar, and reluctantly he went and admitted to it, in a hearing for child support. And man, immediately after the child support hearing, man, his baby mother blasted him on Facebook, dog, talking about like, just blasting him like, you claim to have mental. Like, bro, do you know what that does to somebody who's actually suffering from something like that? It gives you no more urge to live, man. So you get to it's in a space, man, where you start to some of the things that people deal with, bro. Like I'm talking about, when I got friends, man. I'm blessed to have friends from different sides of the spectrum, all sides of the spectrum, right? From street to CEOs, man, like to pastors, being my closest friends, to it's in this place, man, where like, man, we're dealing with so much, bro, that it's no way, like society isn't built. I feel like personally, it may not be true. Society isn't built for men to succeed in these days, outside of finances, and it is built for very few men to succeed outside of and financially, right? And just to give a little insight of what's going on as far as suicide and it's really a pandemic that nobody is talking about, right? So I have some numbers here that I want to go over, man. We're talking about it in year 2020. 12.2 million people seriously considered suicide, right? And then 3.2 million actually plan to commit suicide, but 1.2 actually attempted suicide, right, without success. But then it gets even further, man, because when you get to the success of suicide, especially with the men, the numbers say that one male dies by suicide every 14.4 minutes, bro. Like what? And that's just in the U.S. You know what I'm saying? Like, so if it's in a space of looking like this, man, like where I say, well, I advocate for mental illness and mental health care, for everybody, right? And I believe that it should be put into your insurance plans, your primary insurance plans, health insurance plans. Because with these numbers, man, like it's a reason why we're leaving this earth. Despite whatever the reason is, we got to figure it out. We got to just stop everything. We got to create a new infrastructure within the mental health services where it supports kids and it supports the amount of people that need the attention, And the scary thing about it is, as far as we are in this process, we're advocating and bring awareness to what we deal with as far as mental health and mental illness. Mental health and mental illness is it's not surprisingly, but it's two separate things. It's two totally separate things, man, and it has to be handled that way. And
you said Chris said he gotta go.
All right, it's cool, bro. Hey, Chris, I can join him, man.
Yeah, sorry about that. My picking up my son from the gym, man.
No, I told bro, it was no. I just needed you in for a second.
Got you, man. Love you guys. Keep going.
All right, man.
All right, peace.
So no, bro. I think I wanted to get Chris on here for perspective because he get the perspective from the pastor. You know what I'm saying? And he asked the question, "Is God enough?" His answer was yes. I still feel like that. Respectfully, that it isn't enough because you got to be able to cope to get through some things. And me personally, I have a very strong relationship with God, but when that psychosis hit, man, I had to do some coping and some working to get back to a space where I can even process what he was saying. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it make you question it seriously.
Yeah, bro. So it's in a space where like I was telling the numbers earlier, the highest rate in age group of men that are committing suicide, surprisingly, men in their 50 from ages 50 to 54. You know what I'm saying?
They can't all be selfish.
Yeah, it can't all be selfish, man. We're dealing with some things, bro. Like I wish I could explain clearly what that felt like when I was in that space, bro. The amount of things and how life just continually beats you down in a space where you already beat down, and it's nothing you're perceiving; it's actually happening. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you deal with traumas. Me personally, deal with traumas as far as not dealing with not being the dad that I want to be. Now I'm in a space where I'm like, okay, I got time, and a part of the reason why I wasn't able to be the dad that I wanted to be because with my two oldest kids, I got sick in their primary ages like that, their primary development ages where they needed me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and on that time, bro, I wasn't there for nobody, dog. So that really messed with me, man, to the point on top of, like I said, not having my dad, getting molested, getting shot at, getting robbed, you know what I'm saying? Like seeing things that, bro, you never thought you would have to forget. You know what I'm saying? Like, seeing things you never thought you would see and not being able to forget it, bro. It's like, it's the weirdest thing the way I internalize things with living with bipolar, man. Like every emotion is overwhelming. I can't get excited too much because I have an anxiety attack. You know what
exactly.
I mean?
Yeah.
So telling somebody like dealing with the range of emotions was such it comes that emotion, man. It's not like I'm just happy, but that shit is overwhelmingly powerful. You know what I'm saying? Like when I'm sad, you're overwhelmingly sad. You just lost everybody in your family when one person just passed. You know what I'm saying? Like when one person told you close to hurting, you hurting too. So it's not something that you just sitting back and you kind of like, as a man, you taught to ignore those. You know what I'm saying? And then me growing up, I pushed all that stuff away, man, because it wasn't a manly thing. And I struggled with what a man was for the longest time. And being able to not do the things that men do as far as be there financially, you know, be strongly financially in the way that everybody wanted me to be there, you know, and provide the way that I wanted to provide. Getting through and navigating through some of the obstacles that I experienced in life, bro. Like it wasn't easy, man. And a lot of things that I've been in, dog, I guarantee that most wouldn't want to live either. You know what I'm saying? And so it hits me hard when somebody said that was selfish, because my decision at that point, bro, somebody had to make me see that I wasn't. They had to like enforce it on me that I wasn't being selfish, and that was my way of dealing with, you know, the best thing for your sacrifice for your family, you know, and ultimately it was for my family. And to see that you know, so and bro, one of the scariest things about my life, though, I can see pain in kids and I can see pain in other men, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like naturally, I can recognize pain in women, but because I was raised by women and I was nurtured by a lot of women, I can naturally see and read pain in men. And man, some of the things that we talk about with some of my guys, man, like, bro, like it ain't no way, man, like it ain't no way that women can't empathize with what it is that we go through. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I say that, bro, because, and I'm not saying that in a way in a masculine or you know, being anti-feminist. I'm saying it in a way, man, like we're not comfortable telling what we struggle with to our closest female, whether it's our mom, our wives, or whatever, because sometimes we overhear, you know, conversations and what they think a man is, you know, just expressing it, right? So when you're not able to meet that sometimes, man, and I think my thing was, man, like I know I was going for pharmacy school. I was in it. I was killing it. I was going for it. I was getting dean's lists and things like that, bro. Then all of a sudden, dog, the ambition just went away. And I remember asking myself, like, man, like what happened? So when I see stuff like that, when I see my friends, that I was on that pursuit with, and they graduate pharmacy school, and they having their families, they doing these things, and I'm in the process of going through a mental break and trying to maintain a job and losing jobs because now the medication that I'm on, it makes it look like I'm high on a illicit street drug. You know what I'm saying, bro? So yeah, I think the craziest thing, like I was saying earlier, from that spectrum, bro, from dealing with dudes from the streets, the pastors, the CEO, janitor, however you want to, the homeless dude, like bro, like we deal with some things that we don't talk about, man. Like, and we think that we've been manly by not talking about it. And I'm watching so many things happen that's contributed to mental illness, as far as like the violence we see in the street today. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, ain't no way these people dropping like this, and you're not telling me not dealing with mental illness. You take that number, man. You know what I'm saying? You take the number of brothers dropping in every city, dog, and you take that number and then multiply it across every city, not state, but every city in the United States, bro. Look at them numbers, dog. It's scary. And then you see, like, we die from suicide, but we also die from the hands of each other. You know, we're also dying at the hands of others. It's in a space, man, where kids are growing up seeing this, man. Some of our young boys don't have no hope because they're like, bro, I ain't gonna. Women only. So my kids tell me, women only want money. So I had a kid tell me, man, 13 years old, bro. He told me death got to be easy because life is hard. He's 13, and he felt that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think we need to get back. You know, my thing, man, is here, man. We need to get back to love, bro. I think that's why we messed up, because I think like just loving somebody, man. When you get the real definition of love, it's not what we say it is today. It ain't about how much money you bring to the table, man. Love is patient, love is kind, love teaches, you know what I'm saying? Like love nurtures. None of that stuff involve love, say what you bring to the table. That's something that we created culturally, man. I feel like it's destroying men left and right. And a lot of, as you're right, we don't love ourselves. We don't know how to love ourselves. We live in a society where we don't know our history. It's not clear on our history, let alone who we are, because our family isn't around. You know what I'm saying? Like it's whether that's your dad or whether that's the people growing up with their moms are addicts, and you know it's being raised by their grandmother, man. Every day these kids are living in traumatic situations, and you coming in here and you're acting, and men, you coming in here acting like we're supposed to be okay and we're supposed to do certain things. I heard Chris Rock say something, man, where he said, and it hit me because it was like men are the only thing love with condition, right? And he said men are only love with based off of what you can provide. And it's not in a sense of saying like we women only love us in the space, but eventually, bro, when the stuff ain't getting paid and you know it's getting tight, who they are naturally supposed to look to? You know what I'm saying? So within that comes some type of it's resentment. You know what I'm saying? As far as resentment. I'm sorry. It comes with some resentment, and you know they don't want to feel like that, bro. But it's a frustration that everybody deals with, man. I think we're in a space where, hey, bro, I'm gonna go out here and say, like, more men need more love, man. Like, you know, like make sure they good first, man, because you know we know what women go through, and we recognize and we empathize it. But it's get to a space where sometimes we feel like we can't voice how we feel because you know how much women say they go through, and it's justified because they go through a lot and they deal with a lot. I would like to see the conversation shift from who's dealing with more and recognizing that we're all dealing with a lot. So how can we make this road easier in life for all of us? You know what I'm saying? I'm not just talking about relationships. I'm talking about friendships. It's depressing when you hear every year somebody talking about new year, new me. If you're not on my level, I gotta leave you in last year. Why, bro? Like, why? What does that have to do with being a friend? What does that have to do with just because you go in this space? How do you know you're not going to experience what that person has been through? You know what I'm saying? They might be an asset to you in that future. I feel like today, man, the reason that we're seeing suicide the way that we see it, especially amongst men and kids, bro, is because it's not enough love, bro. And I'm gonna stick to that, man. Like it's in a space where you know we gotta kind of, you know, it's hard for me to do this. It's hard for me to speak on some of the things that I talk about with the things that I've been through, especially relating to how I feel about some of the things that I went through and my kids' lives. It's hard for me to talk about openly, you know, the trauma that, you know, the relationship with my dad the lack of relationship with my dad has caused me when I know my dad is trying to get through and been going through things himself. You know what I'm saying? So ultimately what I ended up learning to get to this point, and I'm glad I'm here, bro, is that, man, you gotta be empathetic towards people's situation, man. And you can't cut it because no matter what you do, you can do the exact opposite things, man, and life still come back and hit you the exact same way, which you feel somebody gave you. And you wouldn't do it on purpose. You're not doing it on purpose. I'm gonna say that's my rant for the night, Chris. If you got anything you want to say, bro, go ahead and get it in. I promise the next couple of episodes are going to be more streamlined. Tonight we wanted to kind of freestyle it and just start the conversation on what, you know, just give a little insight on what men feel. That depression, the same way women feel when they're depressed, we feel the same thing, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, we the same way they're strong, that you know, that everyone that's in the space of contemplating suicide is not weak, bro. Sometimes they made it through some major obstacles, dog, and they've seen some things that the average person haven't seen. They take life in the way the average person does. I know people, man, where money don't do a thing for them, dog. You know what I mean? Like, and they have the money. So but I'm gonna go ahead and end it on that one, bro. What you got on?
Nah, man, I'm straight, man. You know, looking forward to the next one. I think these conversations are much needed in the, you know, for everybody, really. You know what I mean? Especially with for men, you know. So we probably be on when we gonna do the next one?
We're gonna do the next one next Monday at 8:30, bro. We're gonna keep it rolling with him. We're gonna kind of break it down moving forward. We're gonna do discussions and interview, you know, some other folks. You know, a lot of things that we want to talk about are things like in Baltimore last year, it was a guy that committed suicide after he killed his ex-wife and his pregnant girlfriend, right? But the details that came out behind that, like, yes, that was an alarming story altogether, man. But, you know, like, what this guy went through before he got to that point, man, somebody got to recognize, like, nah, that was messed up, bro. Like that, like, if you do that to any man, you don't know how anybody gonna react like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it go back to a space, man, in society, bro, where you got to be gentle with people, man, because you never know what somebody's dealing with. And the same way a smile, I'll take a little load off of them, man. You bringing your negativity and your energy, bro, might be the straw that broke the camel back, and you don't know how they're going to snap, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't know if they're going to walk away, run away, punch you in your face, or kill you. You know, so.
Yeah. That's why I say, man, we got to stop, like, you know, looking down on each other, because, like you said, you never know what another person is going through. You know what I'm saying? Like, and look to help somebody, look to, be a shoulder to lean on sometime, instead of, looking at somebody a certain kind of way because they might not have as much as you, or they might be in a bad situation. Because to be honest, I done lost it all several times, and I done been down more times than I can count. So, that's why I try to look at everybody from the standpoint of, what I can do to help them, versus, looking at them a certain kind of way, because you just never know, man. Like, you got some of the smartest people that are just in a bad situation right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's all it is. It's just a situation they're going through, and they'll get out of it. So
Yeah.
that's why I say I'm glad we having these conversations, because a lot of people might see you or see me and have no idea what we've been through. Don't know anything about our story at all.
Hey, that's facts too, Cremo, bro. You're right, man. You're right, dog. Like, social media give a major perception that we all got it together.
Yeah, and that's why I always say, like, social media is like a gift and a curse. It keeps people together, but it also tears people apart at the same time if it's not handled right. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing with anything, with money. Anything you have, it could be a weapon if it's not handled right.
No doubt, bro. Hey, man, and like they about to head out on the raid train, bro. Hey, thank you everybody for coming and joining on this live tonight. Well, like I said, the discussion will get more interesting. We're going to just talk about some Kanye West, Antonio Brown, some different things in the media that are current events, and just talk about how some things can play on mental health and what it actually looks like from somebody that's suffering from mental illness. Interviews and everything are coming. Thanks for supporting y'all. Y'all have a good night.
All right,
man. Thanks again, everybody. I appreciate the support. Everyone have a great night and enjoy the raid train.